Hey, everybody, welcome to a special edition of the Buckeye Leafcast. I'm Andy Evans with Columbus Wired, and we are doing this in association with our friends at Yamo Media. And I say a special edition of the Buckeye Leafcast because we've got a very special member of the Ohio State football. What do I want to call it? Just the overall ambiance of the Ohio State football program. And that is former captain and 3-year starter, Mr. One and only Greg Frey. Greg,
Thanks,
thank
Andy.
you for coming on with us,
Glad to be
sir.
on board. Absolutely. Anytime.
Hey, thanks for taking a few minutes out of your night to sit here and talk to us. So, Greg, as you know, technically it's the 66th meeting coming up against the Hawkeyes. However, the 2010 game was wiped off the books, so I guess it's kind of more like meeting number 65. But it's also the 100-year anniversary of when these two teams first met, which was, of course, in Ohio Stadium in 1922. And I thought, you know what? Who better to talk to about maybe reliving, rehashing, regaling us with some old Iowa football game stories than Greg Frey, a guy who played in at least 3, but you've got memories of even more Iowa football games in your past. So let's start there, Greg. Regale us with what you can really remember, what you recall when it comes to Ohio State versus Iowa and what it was like playing those guys both in the Horseshoe and over there in Iowa City against some well-coached Hayden Fry teams.
Yeah, it's interesting when you guys asked me about this. I started thinking about it, and there's good stories with each of those years. I actually was part of 5 of those games. So the first one being 1986, we played at Iowa, and we had a very good football team that year. We got off to a slow start, but really went on a roll. That's a team that ended up finishing that year, winning the Cotton Bowl over a really strong Texas A&M team. But that was my first trip to Iowa City, and I had heard about this pink locker room. And let's just say that the pregame, the pink locker room is supposed to kind of, calm people down, and it had the opposite effect of our team. And let's just say there was a bit of damage done to that pink locker room. If I had to guess on in the dollars of damage that there would be, it kind of looked like a hurricane went through there. Let's just say that. And this was pregame. So that's kind of one of those games when you know what's about to happen on the field. And it was, and again, I was a freshman, like watching all this, like wide-eyed, like, I'm not going to do any of that, but I'm watching.
Now, are you allowed to drop any names as far as who was maybe leading the charge of this?
Not going to do it. Not, and it was, that's one of those that never got out to the media, that nobody really knew about.
I've never heard that before.
With my eyes, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's just say there was some demolition happening there. And then that was transferred to the field. I don't remember the score of that game, but it was a pretty good butt whooping. We put it to him that day. It was fun to watch. Like, Chris Carter, Jim Carsados, Bob Maggs at center, Jeff Uhlenhagen. I mean, that was a really good football team. Vince Workman, William White, Chris Spielman. Like, that was a loaded football team. And that was a fun game to watch and be a part of.
Man, those guys right there. I mean, yeah, but the fact that you were a redshirt freshman and you still made the traveling squad, I mean, you kind of had to, even though, I mean, at that point, did you already know you were being redshirted?
No, because I was third string. I mean, it was one of those where it was an odd thing where I was scout team quarterback, but being third string, I mean, you're not that far away. So it turned out, and the rules were different then. I probably could have played a few plays. At that point, you could not play a snap, and you'd lose your red shirt. So they were very careful not to play me. It's changed now a little bit, but it was, for me, it was a great experience because I got to travel. I went to every game that year, even though I didn't play, and I was very much a part of what was going on. So I got to see all that, and from from a maturity standpoint and experience standpoint, that was very helpful to me because the next year I was number 2 behind Tom Tupa, and I got to play in a lot of games. So that just was a part of the stepping stone of the experience for me, which really helped me grow and learn.
Yeah. So what was it like then? You get your first start in 1988, right? And that was the first year for, of course, Mr. John Cooper. So him taking over, and you guys didn't necessarily have the best year there in 88. What was it like though, going into, unfortunately, right? But what was it like, having to take over? Now you're the starting guy and it's under a new coach. What was that experience like?
Yeah, that was such an up and down year. We were kind of feast or famine. I mean, we beat LSU, was I think was 5th ranked at the time. We started off beating Syracuse, who won 14 in a row. But then we lose at Pitt 42-7 or whatever. I mean, it was really up and down, and we had a pretty rugged Big Ten schedule that year. And we kept sputtering, and the Iowa game was no different. If I recall, I think we trailed at halftime, and we came back and tied them, right? There was no overtime then, so we tied, which is
one of only 5 ties in the entire history of the Iowa game. There's only been 5 ties, and I believe that 88 game might be the last tie that ever happened with them.
Yeah, that's not one I talk about very much because we had a really good great second half. I remember we went for like a 4th and 2, and I carried on a boot play and missed it by it was like an inch. If we get the first down, we win. So yeah.
One of those games where like what Bobby Bowden said, a tie's like kissing your sister, where it's like, all right, we didn't lose, but we didn't win. And I mean, and how often do you think it's like what?
It's just swipe left. Next game.
Yeah, right. Yeah, just so you started off, you tied Iowa in your first start. Then 1989, you got the win in the horseshoe.
Yeah.
And I think you guys that was kind of a bad beat down on them in 1989, if I'm not mistaken. Or it was a healthy win.
Yeah, I think it was like 28-0. And that, we were really starting to catch our stride that year, late in the season, really putting things together offensively and defensively. I mean, I believe defense pitched a shutout. I just remember offensively, we were clicking. We were just, we had a huge offensive line. We had some really good skill. I remember running a play where Coach Coletta, who was our offense coordinator, was just hammering me about throwing a curl route to Jeff Graham and learning how to throw it on time, which was before I wanted to throw it, and learning about what is open, and that's a difficult thing because you have to throw it before you're really comfortable throwing it. And I just remember that week we worked on it over and over and over, and we threw that pass early in the game, and I threw it on time, and it was amazing because the linebackers, it went past the linebacker's ear, missed him by like an inch. And he never saw it because I threw it on time. He was turning his head, the ball went right by him, and Jeff Graham caught it as he came out of his cut and went up and crossed the field, went 80 yards, gone. And
that was
I just remember coming to the sideline, like, told you.
All right, Coach, maybe you do know a thing or two about throwing a timing route. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So what else about that 89 game stands out to you?
That to me, I don't remember a whole lot. It's one of those. It was a dominant victory. It was solid in all phases of the game. As we were really picking up steam heading late in that year, and that was probably when we played our best football about that time of the season.
So then, here comes 1990, your senior year. You're a captain, and you are visiting. They were like 6th in the country or something like that. I mean, they were like highly rated. And you've now got to play Iowa for the last time in your career on the road. And was it still a pink locker room?
I don't remember that. I'm sure it was. I'm sure they haven't changed it. But, I remember Hayden Frey. I had so much – he was the Iowa coach at the time, legendary coach, passed away here recently. Just – he always said very, very positive things about me. He always called me his nephew, which I thought was kind of funny. And his
Really?
coaches did. And I got to meet him a couple
Mm.
times at the Big Ten meeting in Chicago, and he was always very, very gracious to me. And it's one of those guys I had a lot of affection for. So it was kind of neat, playing out there, and I was a great place to play. We always had success there. We never lost out there. We tied. We didn't lose.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. In my recollection, that was by far the best defense I ever played against. That was, one of the top, probably two or three. If you look at the
Like
statistics for
ever
that
in
game,
your entire
oh yeah,
career, that
yeah,
night, of all the teams you played, that was
yeah.
one of the best defenses ever.
I would say maybe USC 1989 and 90 with Junior Seau and company was pretty darn good. But this defense, right? Yeah, they were okay.
Yeah.
I think we had minus yards rushing for the game. It was horrific running the football. We could not run the football. Couldn't do it. So when you're a quarterback, that puts a lot of stress on you as a quarterback. But the thing is when we got opportunities in that game, we were, I believe, perfect in the red zone with touchdowns, which on the road is really difficult to do. And we pretty much trailed the whole game. I think we scored in the first half. We put one decent drive together, went down the field, and we had a first and goal inside the 3, and run. I'm like, will you give me a play action pass here? So of course they do that at fourth down when they know it's coming, and it's interesting. I'm way more critical now than I ever was of the play calling then, because it's like if you're going to go play action, you should probably do it on second down, or first, not on fourth, especially when you got a quarterback like me who's not fast, quick but not fast. So I had to use one of my special moves to get in the end zone on a play action boot, and I got in, so we scored, tied the game. They jumped ahead 14-7, and right before halftime. So if anybody's watching this and you don't remember this game, you should go look this up, because I don't know if this is ever. This would be curious to see statistically. We scored on the last play of the first half, and then again, for those of you who know the story, we ended up scoring on the last play of the game. We'll get to that, but we scored on the last play of the first half. We got the ball back with maybe 20 seconds left. We ran the ball to Robert Smith just to kind of see if we could pop something, and we did, and got up near midfield. So we might have had 7 seconds left, and we ran a Hail Mary, but we ran a little tweak to it with Jeff Graham running a square in instead of the go. And I had to throw it earlier than I wanted, and I remember this play vividly. So I had to step up in the pocket, really couldn't set my feet, and I threw it as hard as I could throw it. And Merton Hanks, who ended up playing in the NFL for a long time with the 49ers, great player, comes. Remember Merton Hanks, right? So he comes flying up, and the ball hits him right between I think he was 45, like bang, right off his chest, and bounces right off and right into the hands of Jeff Graham on a dead sprint, and takes us to the house. And all I can remember is looking at the clock and seeing zeros as Jeff's crossing the goal line. And I'll never forget, you're a competitor and you're like, I just knew we're going to win the game. Like when stuff like that happens, you're like, we are going to win this game somehow, some way, because that stuff's not normal.
I think I remember when either you or Jeff were interviewed after the game, somebody called it like the Big Ben play or something like that. Or am I misremembering maybe, or I'm making things up in my head, but it was like, just like kind of kidding around. And someone's like, oh yeah, that was like the Big Ben play, or I don't know. It's just something funny. I thought I'd ask you, be like, was that like a real thing or not? Was that just something somebody was goofing around with?
Maybe that's what we call it. I don't remember the name of the play, but I do remember instead of everybody running deep, we had everybody run deep, but Jeff ran a square in at about 20, 25 yards. But that takes a while to develop. So if you watch plays like that now, like the quarterbacks a lot of times scramble because they're waiting. They need time. And one of my offensive linemen, whose name I will not mention, did not block well in that play. So I had to throw it way sooner than I wanted. So it was kind of like, well, I got to throw it. So I made a commitment to throw as hard as I could. and I threw it as hard as I could, and it was not a spiral because I couldn't set my feet, which was probably why it happened. Like he couldn't catch it because it like bounced off his chest. So it's just one of those, you know, that happened once in my career and it worked. So we'll take it.
Right. I mean, if you're going to throw a pass like that and it's not the most beautiful, the blocking isn't the best and all that kind of stuff. I mean, hey, the end result couldn't have been better. So then, yeah, at that point, I mean, you guys, I think that put you within what, like a field goal or something, maybe going
Oh,
into
it
the
tied the
half
game.
at that point.
It tied the game.
Oh, did
I
it?
think it was 14
Oh, okay.
halftime. Yeah.
Okay.
Which,
So yeah, so that
oh,
ties the game. I mean, how huge is that play at that point, given to
oh,
where you're about ready to go when, for the second half of the game?
it felt like stealing. Like it's like that game, it was not a 14-14 game the way they outplayed us. But, again, we took advantage of opportunities and it's 14-14. So you're like, okay, we're feeling real good about what's going on right now.
I'll bet. So then second half comes out and it seemed like it was still just parlaying off of the first half. You guys just kept slugging it out.
Well, we kept slugging out. We couldn't move the ball. I mean, if you watch the third quarter, there wasn't a whole lot going on. We couldn't run the ball. We're trying to pass the ball. And, it was one of those, I was a little bit like this. If you could imagine handcuffs, I had them on that day.
And is that
when you
because
can't run football,
was that because of the offensive play calling, or I mean, the defense, or a little bit of both?
it's a combination of both. I mean, I'm not going to point the finger completely at our coordinator, but there were some times I was handcuffed. I will admit that. I wouldn't say it then, but I will now. But when you can't run the football, I don't care who you are, you become one dimensional. If you're playing a good defense and they know you're going to throw, that makes it pretty tough, right? So that had a hand in it. But I think if you fast forward to the fourth quarter, and if you know my history, I've been through some comeback games. So I knew in my head, I'm like, okay, we can do this, right? So I remember I was sitting on like we used to have a little, I don't know what you call it, like equipment, storage unit where the equipment guys had their stuff in it. And I used to sit on it and sometimes where the phone was, you call it to the booth, right? And I used to sit on it and hang out with the EQ guys. That was kind of my thing, right? And we talk in between series. Once I was done talking to players, whatever. And I remember looking at the score, it was 26-14, I believe. And I just remember kept telling myself, we can do this, 27-26, 27-26. And I just kept saying it, 27-26, 27-26. We can do this. We need 2 scores. We got to get the first one. And I knew how to do that because as I teach some of my young quarterbacks now that I coach, I'm like, listen, when you're down 2 scores, defenses get complacent. They'll let you have the first one, but you got to be patient with it. There's a way to get that one. So I knew that in my mind. But then we got some help. So our defense blocks a punt, and we got a short field. And again, here's an example of the play calling. So we get a block punt, short field, first down, handoff.
Run.
Second down, handoff. And then it's like, okay. So finally a third down. Well, yeah, now I can throw the ball. And we ran a double post to the wide side, which I knew pre-snap we had a pretty good shot because we call it one high safety look. So safety's middle of the field, corner out here. I'm going to throw it right in the seam to Bobby Allen. What we did is we changed it up that week. I had Jeff Graham, Bobby Allen, both to my right. They both ran posts. So I'm reading the safety. So Jeff basically runs his post at the safety to hold the safety. And if he holds the safety, I can throw it in the hole so that safety cannot affect the outside post. And it's a tight window. It was kind of a breezy day. It was one of those, as a quarterback, you have to throw that ball on time, which means it's a 5-step drop because I was under center. You cannot take a hit step. If you do that, you're late. It will not work. It just won't work. So I just remember nailing it. I took the drop and I ripped it, and I threw it as hard as I could. And I remember the safety closing and the corner closing and the ball arriving, and all I saw was the safety and the corner hit each other like that. And the next thing I saw was Bobby Allen
ran into each other.
They ran into each other, but the ball beat him by probably 1/100 of a second, like literally. And Bobby just caught it and they collided, and he just backed into the end zone. They both fell down. So that was the first one. Kicked the extra point. So then it's what, 26-21. So we're still a touchdown down, and then the defense, just you could tell the energy switched, right? Like the momentum switched, and defense gets a 3 and out, and we got it back again with a minute to go. Like it's like bang, 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 and we get it back with a minute to go, somewhere near midfield, and I think we had one timeout, and now it's in my wheelhouse because we're a 2-minute drill, and do you know what that means in a 2-minute drill, Andy? Who's calling the plays?
You are.
That'd be me.
So now all of a sudden you get to call whatever you want. How did that feel then? You've got a minute to go, and it's like, and you just said it, you've been through a couple of comebacks in your day. Hey, anybody out there who doesn't know the history here of Mr. Frey and his ability to lead an Ohio State football team to an insane comeback, Google 1988 LSU and 1989 Minnesota, especially considered one of the greatest comebacks in college football history. I'm not exaggerating, or because Mr. Frey is sitting here with me, but that literally, the points you guys came back in that Minnesota game, we won't go into that because we're talking about Iowa, but a minute to go, and a guy who knows and has done it before is now getting to call the shots on this drive. Take us through it.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, and I think, again, that's it's such a great, the coaching point is, and I've heard the term, like, in your remembering room, like in my mind, like, okay, I've done this. Like, this is it's in my wheelhouse. I'm very comfortable in the situation. Matter of fact, I love those situations. And, what I love about the situation is I got 4 downs because we're not going to punt, right? And I get to throw. Like, I get to call the play. So I know if it's not open, I can throw it away. And I don't care. I just need one completion, and I'm good. So it turns the tables on a defense like that stops the run, because we're not going to run the ball, and I'm going to spread them out. And I was very good at moving around. Like, they had a hard time getting to me when I spread the field out. So it completely changed the dynamic. And, first play, sure enough, I got rushed, and I just got flushed out of the pocket. And I found Bobby out and I hit him on a backside dig. And it was like 20-yard gain, like bam, like that. So, we're moving right now. And, then it was a matter of, do we have enough time? And again, I remember watching the replay, and it was Brett Musburger and Dick Vermeil, who I loved. I thought they always had said about me. And I remember them, Dick Vermeil would get all anxious. He's like, there's only 30 seconds. And, for me, it's like 30 seconds is a long time because you can stop the clock multiple ways, right? So I remember throwing a pass completion to maybe Scotty Graham, and he didn't get a first down, and the clock's running, and we're getting lined up, and again, it's 25, 26, whatever. And I'm like, I'm not in a hurry because I know, there's urgency, but not panic, right? So I remember calling a play, and I hit Jeff Graham on a crossing route. And it was just one of those, it was such a great play because everybody did their job. Like, I had to sit in the pocket and wait for Jeff to come open over the middle, and the guys up front did a fabulous job, and I was able to wait. And I remember throwing at the guy in my face. I got hit through like this, and Jeff caught it behind the linebackers and got us down to like maybe the 3 or so. And so you can imagine all the coaches like, spike it, spike it, spike it.
Yeah.
Spike it. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we all go run up, we line up, and I look over at Jeff Graham, and he's one-on-one, and his guy's like at 2 yards. And I look at Jeff, and he looks at me, he's like, and I kind of tap my butt, which was fade. I'm like, screw the spike, man. We got this. Let's end it right now. And so everybody's thinking we're going to spike it, and I throw fade. And I overthrew it. He was wild. Like, he had his guy beat, and I missed the throw. And let's just say, if looks could kill, the looks I got from the sideline, because I just used up maybe 4 seconds. There was maybe 8 seconds left, and that took us down to, I don't know what it was, much. And that's the beauty of that is like the coach on the sideline, they can't come out. I'm like, you stay there. We're good.
Now who's got the handcuffs on him at this point?
Right. So then they call this play, and this would end up being the winning play, which, in retrospect, and again, this is what, I'm an offensive coordinator now in high school. And I challenge people now. I'm like, you go call plays for one time and you see what it's like, right? So we call a play that had been working for us a lot that season. Well, guess what? Iowa watches the film. Like, they know what's coming when we line up in that formation. They knew what was coming. So it's one of those where, fortunately, we have practiced that play quite a bit, and it's a 2-receiver route, like a little rub route with Bobby Olive and Jeff Graham. So we got our 2 best guys, and it's 2-on-2 against their 2 best guys, and they got 9 in the box, and they're coming after us. So, and it's kind of a turn back protection where I'm rolling to the right, both backs blocking in front of me, and it works against man and zone. So it's one of those. I mean, I remember repping this over and over and over. So that the actual touchdown that Bobby Olive catches is a route conversion that happened once.
You mean you guys had only run that play one time?
With the conversion in a game. We ran the conversion in practice. But so what happens is when you get a zone coverage, one of those guys typically pops open because they kind of rub off each other, and then one guy's short, one guy's in the back of the end zone. So you get 2 options. Well, Merton Hanks is no dummy. Merton Hanks is covering Bobby Olive. He's watched the film. He knows what's coming. Literally knows what's coming. So he jumps the route. So Bobby recognizes that and pivots and turns back the other way. So, and I anticipated that. Like, we had run it enough. I kind of thought that might happen. And sure enough, he jumped it. Bobby pivots and goes back the other way. And now when that happens, there's a window, and the window's like tight because you got linebackers that are chasing. So if you watch the film, like that window is small, and I had to throw it high. So like he is in the back of the end zone like this. So it was just one of those, the execution it had to be impeccable. And again, that's just not on just me and Bobby. It was everybody else because the O-line, both running backs, I think it was Scotty Graham and Robert Smith did a great job picking up guys off the edge. So they gave me just enough time. Like, it was just one of those, like, everybody did their job. Everybody. And Bobby made a great catch in the back of the end zone. And it was it's one of those, it's a dream come true moment. I had done it before, but that one was special because, it was at Iowa. They were undefeated. And I just remember throwing that, and I just stood there. And I just looked up. And I didn't run in the end zone. I just stood there, and I just took it in. I'm going to savor this one. Everybody else was running on the field.
That literally happened like no time left, right? Like that was maybe a second or something on the clock. 1 second. Yeah. And so I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but you're standing there, you're just looking and you're soaking it in. And, Coach Cooper, he's running on the field and practically getting tackled by other assistant coaches. Everybody's going crazy. And then here's Greg. He's like, well, all right, this is cool, but I'm just going to soak up the scene for right now.
It was one of those, something you don't know how you're going to react sometimes, right? But I guess for me, the fact that I had done that a few times, I had been in that situation, I was very calm. And again, I think it's a blessing just with the gift of being able to be really focused in that situation. People will ask me sometimes, like, how do you function in that situation? And it's like, well, it's about being in the moment. Like, you are absolutely in the moment. You're not thinking about the fans or TV or you are absolutely in that moment, into play. And to me, that was when I was at my best. And I wanted to just soak up every second of that. It was such a cool thing because it was, you hear this silence, and yet you hear the Ohio State fans. We had a lot of fans there. The band was there. The band was going nuts in the corner of the end zone, right? And our guys were it's just chaos on the field, right? And I peeked at the Iowa sideline, and I remember seeing Hayden Fry just walking away, shaking his head, and it was just, I felt some compassion for the guy. I really did. Because we've been
Now
on.
you
That's
had
how
talked about how he calls you or he called you nephew when you would see
my
him
nephew.
at
Yeah.
late. Yeah, and was it? I mean, something like that, a performance where it's like, okay, this kid just came onto our field in our house and made an insane comeback, like, and that was kind of where that respect belied with him, between the two of you.
Yeah, and it was mutual. I mean, and they ended up having it. They finished the year off strong. I don't think they won the Rose Bowl, but they won the rest of the games in the Big Ten. I take that back. They lost in the last game as well, but they still earned the Rose Bowl trip with 2 losses, which is kind of crazy. It was a weird year, but they were the best team in the Big Ten then, and but we stole one. I mean, that was again, I'd love to see the stats. I want to say like minus 38 yards rushing. Now, some of those were sacks, but we had nothing in the run game. And statistically, I think I was like 10 for 22, but they were good ones. And I had a bunch of throwaways that game. So that it was one of those, I was pretty special. We flat stole it because that defense was unbelievable. They had no business losing to us.
I've got the stats pulled up here, Greg. If you want to hear them real quick.
I'm curious.
All right, so on the day, you guys ran the ball 29. This is according to Ohio State's official website, right?
Okay.
And you can go look up the box scores from each game. 29 carries, 90 yards. Actually, no, I'm sorry. 90 yards gained, but 35 lost. So technically, you guys had 55 total rushing yards for the game.
We actually had positive yards rushing. What, 29 carries for 55 yards? What is about 2 yards a carry?
Not even.
About 1.7.
1.7. Yeah, Robert Smith led the team, 13 carries, 51 yards. Scotty had 7 carries for 18 yards, and you had technically 5 carries for negative 33 yards. But the team's only rushing touchdown.
A 1-yard scamper.
A 1-yard scamper. Hey,
Yeah.
You know what? I mean, you may have been the only guy to not gain any yards, but you can still at least say I'm the only guy who scored a rushing touchdown out of Robert Smith and Scotty Graham, and Butler Benote had 4 carries for 19
And who'd they
yards
rely on to get the rushing touchdown? Right here. Me.
Go with your not so fast but quick quarterback, right?
It's too fun. It really is.
Now, through the air, you were 14 of 37 for 223 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, and 3 sacks.
And as a typical quarterback, the pick, I didn't like it because Bernard Edwards was running vertical and I threw it. He was one-on-one. I threw it and he didn't react well. It was late in the game. We had a chance. We had a chance to score earlier. Actually, it was a 4th down play, and I thought I put it in a pretty good spot, and he didn't react well. And I love my man Bernie, but that wasn't a good one.
Say there's another tough Iowa defensive back name for you, Bernard Edwards, man. God,
no, that was
a good one.
Bernard was our receiver.
Oh wait. Oh, I'm sorry. God, what am I thinking? Yeah. Bernard Edwards, that's right.
Bernard Edwards.
I had forgotten about
that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, big.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Well, that's crazy. I mean, that's seriously that 1990 Iowa game. I mean, it still to this day goes down in the books as one of the most memorable Ohio State football games, that I can remember growing up and watching as a kid. That was truly, truly special. And I think the fact that it happened, on the road in Iowa City, I mean, that was amazing. So, excuse me, real quick before we go, what do you think about this year's Buckeyes and a guy who's now playing the position that you used to play?
Yes, CJ, he's having a heck of a year. I watched a lot of film of him last year. And obviously had a great year last year. But from a if you look at it with a fine tooth comb, you could see there were opportunities for him to get better as far as reading coverages and throwing the ball on time, as I have referenced today. My son's a young quarterback, and we watched the Rose Bowl, and I showed him, like, I got the tape out. I'm showing over and over and over. So, he throws this. If you remember the catch by Njigba, one of Njigba's 3 touchdowns late in the game at the corner of the end zone, he throws a slot fade, and it was a sick throw, right? And Njigba catches over the corner of his head. So I'm like, timeout. Let's run this back. Okay, he threw that way later than he should have thrown. It didn't need to be a great throw because Njigba beat his guy so quick. And he waited way too long to make the throw, and he made an awesome throw to squeeze it in. But when you watch the play, it's like, well, pre-snap read, he should have known he was going there right away. I mean, it's such a simple read, but it's one of those. That's where experience-wise this year he'll see that sooner. So he still pulled the throw off a year ago, but if he throws it earlier, it's an easy throw. And it's little things like that comes with experience that you can see this year. He's much more in control. And again, when you've got receivers like he's got, I mean, Njigba hasn't played and barely, and they're still, But I think the difference this year, though, clearly, and again, I'm not the only one to recognize this, is you got a more solid defense, much better defense, and they've got a strong running game, so they don't have to dominate through the air, and that's a nice thing. When you don't have to rely on that, you don't have to score 40 points. And they've taken some heat for that by, not blowing out Notre Dame, but I totally disagree with that because, now they have the recipe to, this team's built to go the distance. Will they? Time's going to tell. The schedule's been, they've taken some knocks in the schedule, but, I think we're going to find out in the coming weeks. I think Penn State will be a test. We found Penn State's not great, but they're still, you got to go at, the State College. That's going to be a tough test. They got to pass that test. And they got to get through the other games. I mean, Indiana's not a walkover. Iowa's, they're not great, but it's still Iowa. And then obviously that team up north is playing some pretty good football, and that's going to be the showdown. The day after Thanksgiving. I mean, that's going to be epic because both those teams probably should be undefeated at that point, and that's where we're going to find out how good this team really is. And then whoever they play in the West. That's going to be a step down. That could be a trap game because, it won't be as big as Michigan. But those are the games you got to win. But if you look at, in my opinion, if you look at the best teams in the United States right now, it's Georgia, it's Ohio State, still Alabama, Tennessee, maybe. And there's a few others that are coming there. But I think to me, it's Georgia and Ohio State. Michigan, I'm not going to rule Michigan out of that because they're a pretty good football team, and we know better than to rule them out. So, but Ohio State's going to get their crack at those teams most probably. So, the opportunity will be there, and I think they've got a tremendous shot to go the whole way.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how things go down this Saturday. Obviously, the undefeated second-ranked Buckeyes welcoming in a 3-3 Iowa team that's got a hell of a defense, but a very, very putrid offense, to put it mildly. So
anemic.
Anemic, man. Oh, they need somebody like Greg Frey Jr. to get out there and lead them. He's not there yet. Maybe in a couple years.
Not there yet. Jackson Frey, remember that? Yeah. Jackson Frey.
Jackson Frey. There you go. Now is what year is he? How old is he?
2026. He's a freshman.
Okay. Playing for who again?
He's playing for the Bexley Lions, so he's actually starting varsity as a freshman. We're taking I'm the offensive coordinator, so we're taking our lumps this year, but we're building a foundation.
Well, if anybody's going to build a good foundation, be a guy that's been there and done that for sure.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah, knock on wood, right? Well, Greg, seriously, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down and hang out and regale with these stories, man. That was exactly what I was waiting to hear is hearing the pink locker room, the destruction of the pink locker room, even though we don't know who did it and we won't go into who did it, but and the crazy, games. Yeah, all right. I couldn't get it out of you. Maybe next time. But Greg, seriously, much obliged, sir. Appreciate you coming on and talking a little bit about your time under center and what you expect out of the Buckeyes this year. And hopefully everybody gets a kick out of it. And we see the Buckeyes celebrate a big win come this Saturday over the Hawkeyes in the 100-year anniversary.
Got it. Anytime, Andy. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. So everybody out there, once again, I'm Andy Evans with Columbus Wired. This has been in production with our good friends over at Yamo Media. Big shout out to Adam Dell for putting everything together tonight. And of course, many, many special thanks to our good buddy, former captain, 3-time starter for the Ohio State Buckeyes, and current offensive coordinator of the Bexley Lions, where his son Jackson Frey is starting on the varsity team as a true freshman, Mr. Greg Frey. Appreciate it, guys. Everybody take care. Have a good night.
The ghosts of Ohio State past trying to haunt Iowa one more time. He gets off a low one. Fair catch at the 49, and the clock is stopped with 59 seconds. But sideline patterns are the order of the day. They'll have to get the clock stopped.
See, the big thing now with the sideline patterns, the defense will be designed to keep everything inside. Keep everything inside. They'll throw the ball up inside. They don't have the timeout, so they've got to hurry up and get it. The one thing, if they do get the 10-yard gain, the clock will stop as they move the chains. That's one advantage.
Edwards, Graham, and Olive are the wide receivers. The offensive line without the tight end. Pressure on the run, throws complete. Once he goes down and they move the chains, now the clock is stopped at 50 seconds, but they'll have to hurry. They are down to the 25-yard line.
Leroy Smith came in from the backside. They better get him blocked because he's all over them.
Clock can be stopped this year by a college quarterback throwing it straight down. It's restarted. Fly pulls out. Again complete, and that is short of the first down. The chains were not completely moved on the far side. Clock continues to move. Ohio State out of timeouts.
30 seconds. 29.
Second down, and 3 yards for a first down. Fly. Incomplete. Stops the clock with 20 seconds to go. So, Vermeil, you be the coach.
Let me breathe.
What happens now?
I'm excited, Coach. Oh, my God. Here's Jimmy Coletto right there in the middle. He's going to make the decision along with Cooper and Coach Huey right there. Here's the reaction that last play. Hey, don't bite too deep, Coop.
It has been a nail-biter here in Iowa City.
It has been an ending.
3rd and 3. The ball is at the 18. 20 seconds to go. Graham, Edwards, and Olive, talented wide receivers. Drive with time, complete to Graham. 1st and goal at the 2. Clock stops with 13. Buckeyes with a chance to win it. 13 seconds to go. Now the clock starts. Scotty Graham and Robert Smith. The fade, incomplete, stops it with 7 seconds to go.
You know, if he'd have thrown that fade pattern a little more accurately right that time, he might have had it. Oh, Coach Hayden Frey. You see what I mean? Take a look at this. If this fade was thrown perfectly, he had a shot at making the reception to the left-hand side of your receiver. He's out there in good position.
Ohio
7
State
seconds.
will operate with a tight end. They're at the 3-yard line. No timeouts. Try to throw. Touchdown, Ohio State. Olive. With 1 second on the clock, the time. A stunned Hayden Frey. With Olive catching his second touchdown pass of the game. The jubilant Buckeyes. 27-26, Ohio State up by a point.
You can see they come with their basic play-action pass. Olive was the outside man outside the slot. He came inside. The slot man went outside. He hit him right where he had to. Way out in front, he dove for the football. Excellent execution in a pressure situation. Again, Greg Frey coming up with the play he needed to get it.